Richard, I don't think many of us were aware that UK Border Force agents were in the region. Is there any hope that British citizens will be able to get out?
Yeah, two slightly different issues, really. Though one hopes that they will come together, so to speak. Of course, Britain does have Home Office people, visa officers, and who come under the broad definition of border force people in embassies and consulates around the world. And clearly, as the Prime Minister said, they've been reinforced in Egypt because of this humanitarian disaster, which does include, we believe, hundreds of British nationals or dual nationals who are in Gaza, either because they're from there or because they were visiting. We all know, for example, the family of the First Minister of Scotland are there,
Yeah.
having just been visiting. So that is, if they are allowed out, they will presumably need help getting to Cairo to fly home. Not an easy place at the moment, because Northern Sinai has its own security issues. So it's not surprising that the government is acting in a precautionary way there. But on the other hand, no sign that crossing is going to be open in the other direction. A few aid trucks have gone in, as we know, a trickle of aid trucks going in from Egypt to Gaza. But Egypt still insisting that it won't allow Palestinians to come into Egypt. And that seems to have held up the whole issue of foreign nationals, which we thought about a week ago, we thought was on the way to being solved. Partly the best of the Americans, who also have dual nationals and nationals there.
Any word at all then on whether the UK will be keen to vet the British citizens in Gaza to try to find out whether they might have sympathies with Hamas? I mean, that will be a concern, I think, to some people, won't it?
This is a very good question. When I saw the statement about border force people going in, that does raise a question of whether there will be an attempt to have a look at who's coming through. And I'm sure that to some extent there will be. But if they're British nationals, then, unless extraordinary measures are taken to strip them of their nationality, as was done with ISIS, there's no reason why they shouldn't be allowed home. And it would cause an absolute outcry if they were, because Hamas is not ISIS, in fact, for whatever other people say. And of course, people living in Gaza are definitely not Hamas or ISIS just because they happen to be living there or staying there or visiting people there. Yes, I imagine there is a close look at all people affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood in Britain at the moment, and people active in Islamist organizations. I imagine a lot of people are being reassessed at the moment, and I suspect that will stretch to people who have been in Gaza.
It is almost 3 weeks now since those horrific Hamas attacks of October the 7th, and still no ground incursion from Israel, by Israel, into the Gaza Strip. But something did go on last night, something the Israeli authorities are calling a targeted raid. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the military released a video this morning of a column of tanks going through the northern border from Israel into Gaza. They said that they were on a limited but significant ground raid, if you like. They said they hit Hamas targets, that there was partly preparing the way, shaping the environment for a full invasion, which they say will happen at some point, possibly quite soon. There may also have been a political element to it, in that Benjamin Netanyahu last night gave this speech in response, clearly, to reports that the Biden administration was asking him to delay his grand invasion. He did make this speech saying, we're going to do it at our own time, in our own way. So this may have been a little nudge, a little statement in those terms. But I'd say the IDF do say it was successful, that overall overnight 250 Hamas command post targets were hit by the Israeli forces, including on this ground raid. So So yes, two ways of looking at it.
I think it's probably just worth emphasising, Richard, that public support is not wholeheartedly behind Netanyahu in Israel, is it? I mean, he was a hugely divisive figure before the terrorist attacks of the 7th of October, and he remains one.
Yeah, the politics in Israel are fascinating. I mean, there's the issue of Netanyahu himself, and there's the issue of the government's plans. I mean, the Israeli people, as far as one can tell, are incredibly united around the government and its the war cabinet and the military. And there is, there are of course voices calling for restraint, or there's a broad range of opinion in Israel, always has been. But the country does seem fairly united that something must be done about Hamas. Netanyahu himself, of course, different matter. I mean, the one thing, he was a very divisive character, as you say, very unpopular amongst a lot of MPs. He'd split his own party. However, he did manage to maintain this right-wing coalition, but it was done on the grounds that only the right and the Likud party, particularly his Likud party, could secure Israel's borders, keep it secure. And of course, that was the one thing that failed on October the 7th. There's a lot of speculation in political quarters that he will not survive the end of this war. That his reputation is now sunk beyond the level which is sustainable. However, he's the great survivor. Of course, he's escaped many political traps before, so I would never count him out.